I served in Colombia, South America, from 1965 to 1968. And I was in the interior of the country in the town of La Plata, Huila, for 2 years, and then I transferred up to Cartagena on the coast for the last year of service. What was interesting for me, anyway, was sort of the invincibility of the Peace Corps volunteer, and that even though we really had not a whole lot of skills, or we thought we may have had some, but we didn't really have a whole lot, there were occasions when you really proved yourself to yourself, and one was when I had to drive a Jeep from the small town where I was located in southern Colombia to Bogota, the capital. And just outside the town of Bogota, the clutch gave out. Well, I didn't know what it was. All of a sudden the car stopped, and I'm not mechanically inclined, but there I was a Peace Corps volunteer, right? And so you climbed under the car and you started to jimmy with things here and there, and lo and behold, I found that the clutch had, the pin that held the clutch together broke. So I pulled out my handkerchief from my pocket and I tied the clutch together. Yes! And we rolled into Bogota, and it was really sort of the beginning of this phase of life when you as a volunteer was probably a golden age for volunteers because you were implicitly trusted. And you find people, and you really, and they really like the fact that, number one, you remember them, and number two, you remember their names, and number three, you took the time to really come back. Because Justiniano's wife, Nayla, this other fellow who's now also 82, she said, you know, you're the only one who ever returned. You've come back a couple times now. I said, yeah, I'll be back again. And that makes a difference. Then you can talk to people because they realize that you're interested.
Bob Kippers, served in Colombia, South America, worked in years 66 to 68. And in the town of Suaza, Huila.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mary Clark Ray, 1966 to 1968, Medellin, Colombia.
My name is Al Paz, 1967 to 1969, and I was in Huila, Colombia. Just the fact that there were, when I was there, 600 people, Americans, who were living there over a long period of time, and got to know a whole lot of Colombians, and a whole lot of Colombians got to see a gringo up close and personal for an extended period of time, who wasn't somebody from the embassy riding in a Jeep with American flags on the fenders and what have you. You know, that's what made the whole thing worthwhile. And I think that's still, you know, you now have in this country literally thousands of people who have had that experience and who hopefully have some influence at this point in terms of what the United States does and what the United States understands about places like Colombia. And right at the moment you don't see a whole lot of effect of that in what's happening in the world, but I think probably things would be worse if we hadn't gone through that experience. So I'm not sure that it's a whole lot better, but we are where we are. But I got to think that that's the one positive outcome of the whole Peace Corps experience is just the contact between people here and people there, and people getting to know each other on a basis, living together for 2 years on a very day-to-day kind of way. So that's...
Okay. Yeah, my name is Helene Ballman Dudley. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Colombia, 1968 to 70, working on urban community development. Oh, and my host family from Colombia, from Barranquilla, where I rented my apartment, I'm still in contact with them. They still contact me on my birthday, and their youngest daughter was now collaborating with a Peace Corps volunteer. So it's interesting how it comes full circle.
My name is Greg Kroll. I was in Colombia from 1970 through 1974. I worked a year on the Caribbean coast in park management and 2 years in the Upper Orinoco in community development.
My name is Ginny May. I was in Colombia 1971 to 1973. I was in the town of Chaparral, which is in the department of Tolima. I worked in a school lunch program, which was run by the National Federation of Coffee Growers. On TV, you have seen the Juan Valdez ads. I worked for Juan Valdez. When I left Colombia, my town gave me a bouquet of orchids, which is the Colombian national flower, and made me an honorary Colombian citizen, which was very exciting for me.
Okay, my name is David Ross Smart. While I go by Ross in Colombia, I had to go by David because they couldn't pronounce Ross. I was in Colombia, Buenaventura, in 1972 to 1974. In Buenaventura, I worked in the fisheries with Indirena, the national fisheries organization in Colombia. Learned how to do shark fishing, which I had never done before, off the coast, the Pacific coast. And I also was a volunteer fireman, which actually helped me get around the town because people could accept me as a firefighter, but not as a volunteer.
Hi, I'm Tim Lawler. I was a Peace Corps volunteer from 73 to 74 in Colombia. The town that I served in was Palmira, and the agency that I worked for was SIAT.
Susan Fryban, 1973 to 75, Medellin, Colombia.
My name is Douglas Sheldon. I was a volunteer in Bogota, Colombia, 1973 to 1975. I worked in the small business program with the Caja Agraria. I was assigned in Bogota the full time.
My name is Daniel Wolf. I was a volunteer in Colombia. I lived the whole time in Bogota working for the cooperative program, and I was there from 1973 to 1975.
I'm Dana Peterson. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Colombia from 1974 to 1977. I was in the cooperative program, and I had training in Bogota for 3 months, and then continued to work in Bogota as a volunteer with the Cooperative Association that worked with a lot of simple cooperatives all over the country of Colombia. And my primary project there was helping them to develop a plan for expansion over a several-year period to establish offices around the country to bring their services closer to the simple cooperatives that operated. And given the time I was there, 1974 through 77, of course, those were the days where pre-internet, no cell phones, and if you wanted to contact some simple cooperative people, and people from simple cooperatives, say in Cali, another city in the country, it might take you a day, 2 days to get a telephone connection to reach them. And that's why we're looking to establish some regional offices around the country to bring services much more quickly to the cooperatives that needed assistance and help, as we represented them to the government, gave them technical assistance and the like, and long pre-internet days where communication was an issue and difficult. And I had a great experience and managed to backpack through South America prior to Peace Corps and after Peace Corps for 3 months each time, and love South America. Thank you.
John Niehaus. I was in Colombia 1975 to 1977. I was stationed in the city of Pasto, Colombia, and I worked in the business program. I had many stories. One is, in particular, is a new skill that I acquired when I was in the Peace Corps. We lived not too far from some friends who were able to go down into the jungle, and they brought me back a blowgun with some darts, and we had an aloe plant that we stuck over the top of the door, and I would sit on the couch and shoot the darts into the blowgun, and I became very proficient at it. And in fact, several years later, I went to Peru and went to a little Indian village where they were showing the touristas how to shoot blowguns. I took the blowgun and hit the middle of the target on the first shot, and they were stunned. Thank you.
Warren Cox. I was in Colombia, South America, from 1977 to 1979. And I have two short stories. First one, when I really understood some of the educational barriers these people faced in Colombia when I was asked by a native Colombian to read something in Spanish to him so he could understand it. And that was very strange. For me as an English speaker, learning Spanish to interpret, to read something in Spanish to somebody who lived in Colombia. And the second was that some days I didn't feel like a volunteer at all because I worked in an office and we had a secretary and she brought me up tinto in the morning, coffee, and so they have a word for that now that my wife Sue got from some of the most recent volunteers. It's called Posh Corps, not Peace Corps. So sometimes I felt like I was in the Posh Corps.
I'm Sue Forrester Cox. I served in Colombia 1977 to 1979. And one of the most memorable points in my mind is when I worked with a nurse and she had a lunch facility that we had Monday through Friday where we would prepare lunch, and many of the children, that would be the only thing that they would eat for the day. And so when we didn't serve on Saturday and Sunday, many of the children, when they saw us on Friday, they would not eat again until Monday. That was impactful.
I'm Patricia Dunphy. My name when I was in the Peace Corps was Patricia Coons, and I was stationed in Colombia from 1978 to 1980. And my site was San Jose de Guaviare, which was about an hour by plane from the nearest city. So I was a nurse and I worked in the outpatient department in the hospital. We rode a horseback out to one of the schools to do the vaccination program. So I just felt like that was very important that we got those children vaccinated.
Mary Pierce, and I was in Colombia, 79 to 81, and Colombia was a beautiful country. It was great to be there. I was in Popayan, a little town in the mountains. It was gorgeous. And I was in the conservation education program, but I had such a posh job it almost doesn't count because I worked in a museum.
I'm Mary Jane Nelson. I was in Colombia in 1978 to 1981. I was one of the last volunteers to leave when the program closed in 1981. I was a nurse and stationed in the town of Fusagasugá near Bogotá.